Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Monday morning to you all. I hope you guys are doing well out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day and a great beginning to your new week out there so far. We got a lot of information to go over in this morning's video, and if you tune into yesterday morning's video, you know that some things have certainly changed. You follow me on social media. I've been talking about a lot over the last 24 hours, and here we are this morning to re-go over everything, see what's changed, what's not changed. We're going to go over all model guidance, the GFS, the Euro AI model, which continues to do very well this winter. We'll talk about all ensemble guidance as far as where that footprint of snow and ice potentially will be. We don't know exactly where it will be, right? And then we'll nerd out with you guys, kind of explain this pattern setup that favors a very active pattern as far as moisture and cold air around, but where will that cold air be? So we'll speak on all that, and then we'll break down today's weather for the second half of the video, and we got you covered there. And folks, I'm already watching 3 different time frames as far as a winter storm threat for areas of the country. But I'm going to give my opinions on all this. I'm not just going to jump on here, show you some, fancy model runs, things like that, and not give you my take on things. So, I'm going to throw that in there as we roll. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put it in the comments below. Let's get rocking and rolling this morning. So we're going to start this off by looking at model guidance. So we're going to speak on the operational Euro, GFS, Euro AI model, talk about the ensembles, etc. Then we'll continue to move forward. So this is the latest Euro from overnight. Just remember, the things that you see is not an exact forecast. It can change, tweak. We're not quite there where we can talk about the details, right, of each individual storm. But we're really close to this first one in doing so. So let's speak on it. Let's start all this off by Tuesday evening, February the 5th. Well, actually, the evening of February the 4th. So here's some timestamps right here and then up here. So let's keep this rolling. We'll go all the way to the morning of the 5th. All right, we're starting to see some moisture bubbling up here in the middle of the country. You see this 540 line? That's cold air. Just think of that as cold air aloft. There could be cold air at the surface, even south of this line, but we're not going to get detailed on that. Just focus on where you see the pinks, the blues, even the oranges. Pinks, freezing rain, orange, sleet, blue, snow. That's where your winter weather is going to be. We'll talk about the details as we get closer, who's going to see what. But we continue to move forward here. We get into, Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday evening. We got nasty ice showing up here. I would say some of this moisture has actually shifted a little bit further west. And this pink, that's freezing rain over Iowa. And this is coming up. This is well under 100 hours now. This is kind of storm system number 1, winter storm number 1. 996 millibar low based off the Euro shooting across the plains. We continue to move forward, but what you'll notice here is this is definitely cutting. This could bring some nasty freezing rain to Chicago, southern Wisconsin, the areas of the Midwest. Look at this freezing rain in the favored cold air damming regions of like east of the Alps, along the Alps. And this is all snow up here in Minnesota. You continue to move this forward. We get all the way into Thursday. And this turns into a nasty winter storm for the Northeast and New England. A little bit closer look at this really quick here. And I knew it was going to do that. It's going to switch to the 06Z. And this is a nasty winter storm for the Northeast. It could start off as a heavy burst of snow for a lot of folks. Vermont, New Hampshire, New York, and then switch to ice and then maybe to all rain. Boston's a good example of that. Could start off as snow in Boston, go to freezing rain. This is Thursday, and then go to rain. Okay, and then that first system is on out. So let's go on and make some switches here and go back to the OOZ because the 06Z isn't all the way in range yet. So this is starting off again Friday morning. Done with the first system. Nasty ice, snow mix, mainly confined to the northern section. So we start to move into our second system. Here's a lot of moisture scooting across the Rockies, a lot of snow. And here it comes. The evolution is just about the same. In fact, I would argue it might be maybe a touch. Well, no, it's not a touch warmer. It's actually maybe a touch colder. So this system's a little bit colder. This is getting into Saturday morning, February the 8th. Okay, we got some snow on top in the blue. We got a nasty corridor of ice somewhere in the northern Midwest, Ohio Valley. And then here it comes. Once again, we're getting into Saturday afternoon, and this is heavy snow up here in Minnesota, Minneapolis. I mean, nasty icy mix in Milwaukee, all snow in Green Bay, and we'll switch it again to the eastern U.S. Take a look what it's showing here. And this is a heavy thumping of snow at the beginning of this. It's not a forecast. We don't know the exact details. But check it out as we move forward. We get into Saturday evening, this is just a nasty, icy mix. This pink is freezing rain almost across the entire state of PA. But of course, the low pressure is cutting. It's moving across Indiana, Ohio. It's going to bring a lot of warm air. And then it picks up a lot of steam here, a lot of speed, I would say. And that low pressure cuts right over like Buffalo. So you know this is going to bring a lot of warm air, big winter storm up here in Canada. And this switches this snow to freezing rain in Boston. New York City, Long Island goes to all rain. And then you got just this low pressure just kind of blasting through the interior sections of the Northeast. This is going to switch you to all rain. Okay? So that's storm system number 2. And I will say between storm system number 2 and number 3, there could be something to watch too. And you can already see it kind of showing up here. So let's once again kind of make this broad because it all starts from west to east, of course. So here comes, listen, the moisture doesn't cut off. I mean, here comes more moisture already kind of building in from the Gulf. See that 540 line already sagging pretty far south here. Let's see if we can get this up. That 540 line, like right in here, a lot of cold air starting to come down. Even further south, you got the moisture down here. Okay, we get this off. And we continue to move. Some of that cold air tries to meet some of that moisture, the northern fringe of it, and a little bit of snow showing up in Tennessee, Kentucky. Not sure if that'll happen like that. Look at the lake effect snow still ongoing in early February. Pretty wild. But we move forward, okay? Now, we're about a week out now. 186 hours out, about a week from today, right at this moment. And then here comes your classic moisture bubbling up out the Gulf. Cold air is now sagged even further south. That 540 lines, I mean, all the way into areas of the southeast, definitely through the mid-Atlantic. Cold air has moved in. Then here comes a big winter storm breaking out across the middle of the country. Now, let's show our folks in the middle of the country some love here. And look at this. This is over 200 hours out, but this is kind of storm system number 3 that I'm watching. This is getting into the 11th. Big snowstorm. Shows up for areas of Oklahoma, northern Arkansas, Missouri, heck, even areas of Tennessee. Okay, and then it starts to move east. And let's go on and switch it to this, and let's back it up a little bit. And here it comes. This is getting into Tuesday morning, the 11th. Not Tuesday morning tomorrow, but a week from today. And here it comes. Winter weather starting to break out over the Mid-South. It's a little bit too warm for areas very far south, but this starts out as snow, not a forecast in Nashville. Some winter weather into Tennessee. Look at the snow breaking out over the upstate of South Carolina. Like Charlotte into the Piedmont, and then this turns into a pretty significant winter storm for, I mean, areas of northern North Carolina, definitely up into Virginia, West Virginia, Kentucky. Now, it looks like the low pressure is about to cut. You can already tell because it goes from snow to rain in Nashville, and here it comes. But this is that cold air damming look that we keep talking about. You see how it's kind of doing like this? High pressure somewhere up here feeding in that cold air. Okay, that's why it has kind of that weird look right there. That's what we call cold air damming. The highest elevations of the apps kind of run right through here. Okay, and then we got a cold air feed right into here. So this is your classic looking what we call CAD storm, cold air damming type setup. And this continues, and this would, hit DC pretty hard with a winter storm, but even this, I mean, it kind of cuts pretty aggressively, and you still start off as a major, snowstorm for New York City, and this is like middle of next week, and then it even turns you guys to rain. And here comes another system behind it, and who knows what happens after this, but I will show it to you because I think what happens after this favors what could happen in the higher latitudes. So a lot of cold air pushes down, but this is just all rain. Past the 10-day mark, it's like we have a mini warm-up. And then a lot of cold air tries to crash down. In fact, it tries to show snow pretty far south, and this is pretty far out. I mean, it's over 300 hours out, but it does show a big shot of cold air, a big dome of cold air up here. But it doesn't dig it very far south, but still a lot of cold air at the very end of the run. So that's the European. Now, what about the GFS? The GFS was kind of following the Euro, and then it decided to be a rebel, which it likes to do, and go the other direction. But here's this first storm. We need to pay attention to this. A lot of ice. This is middle of this week, not next week. First storm. Freezing rain for northern Indiana, northern Ohio. You got freezing rain up into Cleveland. If this is right, the GFS tends to be a little bit colder, so And we're not sure if this will be the solution here, but when we get into Thursday the 6th here in the next few days, we get into some winter weather across southern New England. Starts off as a heavy snow and then probably switches to rain or freezing rain or ice. And then what happens after that? That's storm number 1. And here comes our next system. Like I said, the first and second system are very similar in the evolution. A lot of moisture builds up here. Cold air press. This isn't pressing yet. Once again, you get another icy just mess up here. This is getting into Saturday, but I do think that both of these systems could start off as some heavy snow, sleet, even in southern New England. When I say that, I mean Boston, and I mean could start off as winter weather in New York City and stuff like that. So we'll kind of get a better look at this, and this is just your classic winter weather event going to rain for a lot of people. But for some areas this weekend, like the GFS wants us to show the state all frozen precipitation, saying like Boston almost. But both of these systems could be major winter storms for like Maine. And then what happens to that that third system? What's the GFS showing? Well, it really wants to cut this. It shows that the cold air does not sag enough south, and it shows a lot of rain for those areas where the Euro shows a big snowstorm. So we kind of just get this long, prolonged overrunning event. And we're getting into like Monday into Tuesday of next week. We got cold air just kind of staying bottled up to the north here. And we just get a lot of moisture overrunning that cold air. And we got this kind of zonal look of snow here. And then a bigger system kind of emerges as we're getting into Tuesday night into Wednesday. And it turns into a pretty significant winter storm for areas much further north. North Carolina, Tennessee doesn't really get into this much. And this would turn into a pretty significant winter storm again for areas, areas of the Northeast around day 9 or 10. And that definitely stays all winter weather. And here comes another one right behind it. This is another cutter. And this is getting past the day 10 mark. So, I mean, we're getting close to Valentine's Day at this point, and it's another winter storm after that. And then if you kind of zoom out of all this, it does show a big press of cold air behind it. At the very end of the run, tries to drop a lot of cold air, but it really delays it. So the GFS kind of backed up a little bit. What about the Euro AI model? This one's always a little bit tougher to explain because it doesn't show the pretty blues and pinks and orange for us. So we have to kind of explain it in a nerding out standpoint, if you will. So we continue to move forward here. Same thing. This is the first system. And what you'll notice here, and I'm going to kind of try to draw. Let's get a little bit closer so I can draw this for you. So see where it says 850 millibar temp Celsius? So this is the temperature in Celsius, about 4,000 to 6,000 feet up in the air, right? So you see where it says 0 right there? Right there. That's 0 degrees Celsius, which is 32 degrees Fahrenheit. So your 32 degree line, it's 32 degrees about a mile up in the air along this line right here. Of course, when you get further north of this, it's even colder. So if you can almost gauge somewhat what's going on based off this, because I say somewhat because you don't know what the temperatures are at the surface. It could be 32 degrees at the surface. Heck, maybe along this line right here. Okay, so that might be freezing rain. It might be sleet. Who knows? But normally you can gauge this line right here that I just drew pretty well as far as the snow line. So north of this is probably snow. So just keep that in mind as we go. So here comes the first system. You can tell that that 0 degree Celsius line kind of bulges north, so you know that it probably switches to ice if you start off with snow and maybe eventually to rain. What happens after that? Here comes the next storm system. It looks very similar. You see that 0 degree Celsius line buckling. And this is what I mean when I say a low pressure brings a lot of warm air. If you look right here, low pressure is heading off this way, and it's eventually going to go like that. You see how this 0 degree Celsius line kind of bulges like that ahead of this L, which is the low pressure? That's because this thing is bringing that warm, moist air. So that's why that 0 degree Celsius line, 32 degrees in the upper levels of the atmosphere, kind of continues to bulge northward. And so that's what happens there. Now, what about the system behind it? First off, you got this little system that flies through. I think this is mainly rain. And then we get into next week, maybe a little bit of a break, and then here comes the moisture. The Euro AI model has the cold air just further south, and it's been showing this for several days now. So if it's right, it's going to be another major win. But here we go. It's not much for the central U.S., so that's why I don't even have you guys up. We're going to keep it at the eastern U.S. And the overnight Euro AI model is another major winter storm for even areas of like the Carolinas. So big, huge chunk of moisture right here coming over the deep south. You can see where that 0 degrees Celsius line is. It's right into here. And you see how these lines are kind of doing like that and like that. That tells me cold air damming, just like what the Euro showed. Okay, so we kind of stop it here. This is some heavy moisture moving into that cold air. If you look at actual temperatures in this time frame, that's below freezing. Like Charlotte is below freezing. Greenville, Spartanburg, below freezing. I mean, even Columbia is hanging out around the freezing mark as moisture is moving in. And it's well below freezing in the mountains of North Carolina, etc. And we kind of move it back to this. So this is a winter storm moving into these areas. And it still is. This is a lot of moisture moving in. And we look at the temperatures once again in this time frame. I mean, it's 30 degrees with heavy moisture moving into Charlotte, Greenville, Spartanburg. Like, this continues to be a major winter storm. I mean, this is a deep cold air damming event, too. Like, if you look, I mean, we have this kind of area of cold air, and it's really right in here, almost getting all the way into northeast Alabama. So that's a pretty substantial CAD event. Big time temperature gradient in southern areas of Georgia. So, I can sit here and get detailed about stuff very far out until the cows come home. You know how I am, guys. But, you certainly got the Euro AI model still honking the horn at a major winter storm for even areas of the Carolinas, maybe even northern Georgia. And certainly turns into, this is certainly all snow up here in like the mid-Atlantic. And then it tries to turn up the coast and turn into a significant winter storm for areas of like the I-95 corridors. But what kind of blocking mechanism do we have in place to kind of lock in a storm track that's going to ride up the coastline? And we'll talk about that here in a second. But what's wild is the Euro AI model does show another warm-up right after that winter storm. And remember, we talked about this, how up and down this February has a shot to be. So it has another storm system behind this, but this will be much warmer. And it has a huge shot of cold air that follows behind all this at the very end. Almost all model guidance likes a shot of cold air behind this. So we've gotten very detailed on that. Now, what about the footprint of snow on the Euro ensemble? Okay, so this is between now and about Friday morning of this week. You can tell that the main signal of snow, and this really only includes that first storm system, right? You can tell there's a pretty solid snowfall average for the first storm system, even for the Northeast. And just, kind of getting a closer look at the Northeast. It's kind of, I love when it does that. This is storm system number 1 for the Northeast. That's kind of adding a little bit of the snow that's falling right now or what fell overnight. This is storm system number 1. Pretty solid snowfall average, really confined to New England, I would say. Okay, now let's go on and take a broader look at this. Right there. Okay, now we're going to move it through the weekend. This is Friday morning, so we're getting the Saturday morning, and we're getting all the way into Monday morning of next week. You see how the snow footprint, or the average, remember this is the Euro ensemble, combines 51 members together. And if you noticed, it didn't really shift south, but it kind of just increased for the areas it was already at. So pretty hefty snowfall average up here. So let's spend some time and take a look at that really quick. If we look, say, Ohio Valley, look at that snowfall average up here through Minneapolis, through Green Bay. It's really confined to this area. And this is only between now and about a week. And then we look at the Northeast. This is multiple storms, 2 big storms. I mean, just between both storm systems, you have almost an 8-inch snowfall average in Boston. I mean, several inches even down to New York City, and of course all of New England. Just a hefty snow look. A little bit of a signal down here for the Mid-Atlantic, but not much. But that's about to change. So we go back to this. let's go past the 1 week time frame. So let's go, through about 300 hours out. So watch what happens. You see how it begins to shift south. You see immediately how it fills in down here. That's that third storm system. And let's just go on and take it all the way to about 330 hours out. Let's just stop it right there. Okay, all of a sudden it's really filled in for the south. So if we're looking at places like the central U.S., all of a sudden past that 1 week, like this is getting past day 7, you suddenly get the footprint of snow down here for Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, northern Arkansas, even areas of Tennessee. And if we look for the eastern U.S., you definitely see the increased snowfall average all the way down to Charlotte. Even Charlotte has an 1.5 inch snowfall average. And just taking a better look at the southeast here, it begins to shift towards the southeast. And a better way to look at this is if we look at 3-day periods here, you can really see, well, let's do this. You can really see each storm signal. This is 3-day increments. So here comes, this is the weekend system. Watch how it blossoms and then it disappears. And then here comes the next bigger storm system that we're seeing. Storm system number 3. You see how the numbers spike for the mid-Atlantic, upper southeast. That's almost, in some areas in Virginia, that's a 6-inch snowfall average based off this 3-day time period, kind of at day 9 to day 11. And that's a hefty signal again for the Northeast. So, between the entire run, I'm just kind of fiddling around with all this. This is through 312 hours out. So this is all the way through not this coming Saturday evening, but the next Saturday evening after that, of the 15th. You have over a foot snowfall average, 1.5 feet for areas of the Northeast. Even like for New York City. And even a signal for, areas pretty far south. So GFS ensemble, we'll just continue to look at it more at a broad look. We're not going to get as detailed. But this is between now and 240 hours out. And this isn't even really accounting for the entirety of the storm. Let's compare this to OOZ. Yeah, so the O6Z has actually increased it further south. You see that little nudge south? And this is just through 10 days out. So this takes us all the way through about almost to the morning of the 13th. So this is 10 days out. So this is the run overnight, and this is the run this morning. You see how there's a little nudge south? So you can already see that third system showing up. And, man, our folks in Chicago, for winter weather fans, just can't get a break. It's like you missed the first 2 systems, and then the third system wants to go south of you. I don't know what you guys in Chicago did to curse snowfall. I laugh because I live somewhere where it hardly snows also, but I'm much further south than you guys. But there is a chance that areas of the Ohio Valley, and I would say the Midwest, kind of misses both. But I do think ice is a concern, which we'll talk about here in a second. But it stinks that we don't have the entirety of the run through, but it is what it is. But, you can already tell the footprints starting and getting going here of snowfall through just 240 hours out. It's already picking up on that signal for that third storm. Let's see, watch this. Yeah, see how it blossoms right through here? This is in 4-day periods. So that's a pretty big signal at around day 9-ish, day 10 for a winter storm in the mid-Atlantic. And even areas of like the upper southeast, the mid-south. So, yeah. Now, ice is a concern to me, guys, especially with these first 2 systems. And the third system can be a big concern with ice too, but it's so far out. This is just between now and next Monday morning. This is the mean average off the Euro ensemble for ice. You have over... This is between 2 systems. You have over a 1/2 inch ice average, like right here with Ohio, Indiana, and lower Michigan meet. Over a 1/4 inch in Chicago. Nasty ice look in these areas. This is the Northeast. Look at this. This is just between 2 storms, not all 3. Okay? Almost an inch ice average in areas of PA. Now, this is probably overdone. But I would just look at this, where the highest ice totals are showing up. That's where, unfortunately, you're going to probably have to deal with the nastiest freezing rain. There's going to be sleet mixed in with this too. And then you head on down to the areas further south. And we start to pick up on that third system. And here it comes. Let's get it in frame here. See how the ice signal begins to build down to the Carolinas and Virginia? I think this is a legit signal. You know, this is that third system. Over a 1/4 inch ice signal in Charlotte, even higher points north. So that is a solid looking, what we call cold air damming look right into here. Highest elevations of the mountains right here. Well, I probably drew that a little off. Right into here. Okay. Cold air damming, cold air getting trapped east of the highest elevations. Okay. So, before I dive into this, I will give you my take on this. So, based off everything we're seeing, well, let's hold off. I'll do it right at the end. I got you covered. Let's break down kind of the nerding out standpoint of this. So, the blues is troughing lower pressure. The oranges, the yellows, and the reds, that's higher pressure. Normally with higher pressure, you typically get above average temperatures. The lower pressure typically brings a cold front, colder air, and just unsettled weather. So what we can look at this and tell, and this is for Friday morning, is most of your energy is kind of traveling along the southern edge of this trough and then the northern edge of the ridge. This is all warmer than average temperatures down here. You're torching, and I think this will last clear through this coming weekend. So low pressures are kind of moving across this area. All right, this is why the first couple systems are going to be kind of flying through here, kind of confined to the northern sections. You got this ridge building all the way up here, so these systems are not going to fly through here. Okay, they're going to kind of bob and weave up through here. All right, but let's keep going. Let's watch the evolution of this. The Euro ensemble has this dip in the jet right here. So this is about a week from today. If we can get any systems kind of around the Monday time frame, I mean, they're probably going to favor doing something like this. But this kind of looks like a period where we don't get a lot of energy kind of coming up through. So I'm not sure if we're going to get anything through this time period. All right. Now we keep going here and we stop it right here. This is that kind of that signal for the third system we were watching, right? So it looks like it's going to favor some sort of storm track right into here. Okay, but does it cut like this? Or does it kind of dig down like that? That's a big question. I think that we're going to have something kind of coming up right into here. Okay, but where is it going to go after that? We got two cold sources ongoing, and this is where it gets tough to explain. We got this ridge spiking all the way up to Alaska, negative EPO. We got a lot of cold air dropping down here, cross-polar flow. A lot of cold air coming in. At the same time, we have this kind of 50-50 low kind of spinning around. This is helping in to kind of drop in some cold air. High pressure will be chilling right here. So I made a funny post yesterday saying, if you looked at this, would you think there's a winter storm going on in the southeast? You wouldn't. But 500 millibars is not what's going on at the surface. That's way up in the atmosphere. So you got low-level cold that's being generated by kind of this throwing back mechanism of cold air down kind of into the eastern U.S. And then at the same time, you got another cold air source that's pretty close by, moisture kind of shooting through here. What's going to happen? It's a tough one. And we'll get more and more detailed on the cold air damming kind of setup as we get closer. But that is a cold air source up here. That's a cold air source. And this, you know, when you got the flow going around like this, this is throwing in some cold air. It's kind of like you got two troughs, right? You got this one, you got that one. And both of them are throwing down cold air. Okay? So you keep going, though. What happens after this? Well, it looks like the trough sort of retracts, if you will, out of the western U.S., and then it tries to drop into the eastern U.S. And we still got some details to get worked out with this because we got so much ahead of us before we kind of find out if this is going to be the case. A little bit of some ridging building into the west, but this is just a big dump of cold air down to the central and eastern U.S. What's going to happen here? Is this just going to be a big old drop of cold air? Are we going to get a much further south storm track? I mean, what's going to happen here? I'm not quite sure, but it just favors a lot of cold air dumping into the lower 48. Now, I will tell you, the Euro ensemble, you know, we're going to start off with these warmer than average temperatures right into here. all the way through this weekend. I mean, this is getting through Sunday. This is getting through next Monday, still hanging on to above average temperatures. But at this point, about a week to 8 days from now, a lot of cold air begins to take over a good chunk of the country. And there's that cold air damming signal right here. You see how you have this weird blob of green here, like 10, 15 degrees below average? That is that cold air damming signal showing up for the Carolinas. And then we got, and this is what I'm talking about. You can see it pretty good. You got kind of two cold sources, one right here and then the big one right into here. Okay, and kind of got a middle ground right here where it's still cold because of this cold air source coming in right here. And you keep going, and you know what happens after that? Well, it's just like a lot of cold air is just dropping down to the western and central U.S. But what happens after that? I mean, it looks like it's just fighting off that southeast ridge for dear life because you just got these warmer than average temperatures really close by. But what's going to happen? What I can tell you is on the latest, I will say on the latest Euro ensemble, it kind of keeps the colder air further north. So if you compare this to the run yesterday, that's not what I wanted to do. Come on, cooperate with me. You kind of compare this with yesterday. Let's look at this run right here. It looked colder to me. And it looked a little warmer in the southwest, which would favor more ridging out west. So looks like we're just everywhere right here. But you get what I'm saying. So, you know, right now, this was issued yesterday. This is the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook. What's wild is they're going for above average temperatures in that time frame in the Carolinas that could have a cold air damming winter storm. Maybe. But the wild thing and what's impressive to me is most of the country is, you know, going for below average temperatures. A lot of cold air. There's no shortage of that. And we're eventually going to beat back this ridge. And I think as we start to move into today's outlook that they'll issue, we'll probably get some of this trimmed back into blue or either kind of this near normal color, but we'll see what happens. I think at the end of the day, and this is where I'm going to give my opinions, I think at the end of all of this, if you live, I'm going to speak for the South and then I'll speak for everybody. If you live in the South, well, let's just do the opposite. If you live in the Mid-Atlantic, you live in the Northeast. I really think this favors a pattern where you're going to just get an opportunity after opportunity. I think you'll get, you know, areas that have not seen much winter. You know, Boston has yet to see that big storm system. I think this will be a pattern where you get the opportunity for it. Even New York City. And I certainly think that some areas could get hit multiple times. And, you know, areas of the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic, maybe areas of the Ohio Valley. And then there's that third system. I think personally, I personally favor areas outside of the Deep South. Like, I think that there is a chance for certainly in Oklahoma, through Arkansas, maybe even sections of Tennessee. But once you get into, like, areas of the eastern U.S., I think the furthest south we're going to get winter weather is maybe the western Carolinas. And that's a big if still. I'm not even quite sold on that, in my opinion. I don't think this is going to trend much colder, but I could be totally wrong, guys. Totally wrong. So I think that could be a big winter storm. After that, after we get past the mid-month time frame, like that third storm, you got all that cold air dropping down. Then you got this working with you. So this is the MJO phase. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. Okay. We're going to look at the Euro and kind of the Euro extended. Okay. We're like in phase 6 right now. So you see this 1 that you see? That's February 1. That's February 2. So we're quickly kind of progressing through these phases. So, you know, it's wanting to say that by the time we're getting to just about to the end of this week, we're getting close to phase 7, which is a better phase to be in, especially if you live further west. Okay, but if you notice, this progresses. You know, this is February 12th right here, 14th, 16th. This gets us all the way into phase 8 by mid-month. And once you get into phase 8, phase 1, phase 2, heck, maybe even phase 3, you're working a lot better with colder air phases, especially for the eastern U.S. and the south. Okay, so it looks like this is progressing pretty nicely. I just don't think we have a favorable phase for a winter storm pretty far south, anywhere between now and mid-month. I think that we got to see what we're working with after we get back into the mid-month time frame, where we can get into phase 8, phase 1. Those are very favorable MJO phases for winter weather further south, and that's what we got last month. That's what we got, those historic winter storms. multiple, southern winter storms, stuff like that. And, I just think that the second half of February is what we watch for areas of the South. I do not think winter weather's done for the South. I think we will have more opportunities, but I think between now and about mid-month, we watch that third system. I think this is going to favor more so areas further north of the South. So that's my opinion. There's been some pushback, I would say, over the last 6 to 12 hours of models, in my opinion. I'm watching that. Not fully balled into this, guys, but we're watching it. Today's weather. I think the radar shows it pretty much beautifully on what's going on. You can see that all the action is cruising to the north. I mean, you can actually see the high pressure, not the actual H, but you can see that it's a zonal flow to the north. All the action is doing like this. What's going on right now? You got energy hanging out, flying over the Rockies, going over the northern terrain of the country, and then this new clipper will move into the northeast. Okay, so that's what's going on right now. As far as watches, warnings, and advisories, you can see it here too. Okay, you got winter weather advisories to the north being reissued for this next clipper, and we got a winter weather moving across the Rockies. Winter storm warnings up, etc. Heck, even they still have not issued any kind of winter weather advisories or anything for Seattle, but they are calling for a little accumulating snow now and things like that. So that's what's going on right now. No risk of thunderstorms and excessive rainfall area. The only watch for is Northern California. But the Southeast today, quiet weather, beautiful weather. The torch is on. 60s, 70s for a lot of people. Beautiful weather. It's gonna make the everybody getting the spring fever. Just know that spring is not here yet. This is fall spring. We all hear that term a lot. We'll get our second winter. We'll have probably another fall spring, and then we'll have third winter, which is typically March. Enjoy the weather, though. I know I am. It's going to be a nice week. Phenomenal week to just kind of go outside, take a walk after work, and go to the park. It's going to last all the way through the weekend. So the Northeast, different story, different season. But we get into this afternoon. Another clipper flies through, but this is much warmer. The ridge kind of builds into the area. So a lot of areas that saw snow will get rain from this. But if you live in the northern Adirondacks, northern sections of Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, this should stay a wet snow, but even the coastal areas in Maine will struggle to get winter weather from this. And you can tell that we're warming up even in the Northeast also, where we will enter a period of above average temperatures for the Northeast. I don't expect much snow from this, but certainly a few inches, and maybe even Maine gets, between what's going on now and what will happen with this system, another several inches of snow if you live in the central portion of the state. But the south central U.S., quiet day of weather once again. Nothing's going on, and I think it'll be pretty quiet in the south central U.S. for quite some time. Nothing to speak on. North central U.S., we got this band of heavy snow making its way through. This will continue to move across Wisconsin to the rest of northern lower Michigan into southern Ontario and then head on out. So that'll continue to drop some accumulating snow in some of these areas, but this is happening right now. I don't have an accumulation map up for you guys. But the western U.S., you continue to have this funnel of moisture into northern California, Oregon, into areas of Idaho, Montana. Snow levels are, lower, not historically low or anything like that. But as we're starting to get into tomorrow, we'll have this spinning system right here, a low pressure that will try to drop some snow even for Seattle maybe. We'll see what happens. And then this continues to make its way across the Rockies, and this is going to be our next system moving in for the eastern U.S. Snowfall between now and the next 24 hours. Seattle going for about an inch now. So we'll see if we can squeeze out an inch of snow in Seattle. It'll be a wet, slushy inch. And then we'll move into Montana. And this is what it's looking like. Yeah, big winter storm for Helena. I always mess it up, Karen. You correct me. I know Karen's a loyal viewer out of here in Montana, but Helena, man, I should know that by now. I don't. But, man, they're calling for 9 inches of snow over the next 48 hours. So this is going to be a big one for you guys out here in western Montana especially. And then we'll head a little bit back here because I missed Idaho. Not cold enough for the valley regions. Maybe Boise gets an inch. But this is what it's looking like here. Temperatures, big warm-up coming in the Northeast. I mean, we're climbing all the way into the 60s, maybe even low 70s into Illinois, Indiana. It'll be an insane temperature gradient today. Look at these temperatures in Texas. We're getting into the mid to upper 80s. Someone might hit 90 degrees. And then look at the temperature gradient through the northern plains. We've been talking about this for a while, how this was going to happen. Wyoming is tripping me out. You can tell how the cold air is kind of getting trapped on the certain sections of the Rockies here. I'm gonna be interested to pull up a temperature map this afternoon for Wyoming. There's a pretty wild temperature gradient showing up through here. So that's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all. And we're probably going to start to double up the videos if things continue to look like it's progressing towards a very active period. So, and it does look like it is for a lot of people, but if we start to see things for more of like a widespread area, then we'll certainly begin to double up those videos. But just in the past, I've just pulled the trigger on that way too fast. Just kind of want to ease our way into this. You know, you learn as you go and things like that. But that's all I got. Y'all have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you again soon.